Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2174. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Midlothian, say that 10 times fast, Virginia, with a very special guest by the name of Brad Novack. Brad, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Let's go for it.
All right, we're going to have some fun. Now, before I introduce you, what's one little thing that maybe people don't know about Brad?
Well, most of my friends know, I think, but I am a musician. I played saxophone from elementary school through college.
And do you still play?
Unfortunately, I had to sell it to buy one of the many cars that I've owned. But now that I have a child, I do plan on getting another one so I can kind of teach him.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the new little baby. Know how that goes. Sleepless nights. Is he sleeping through the night yet?
For the last 3 nights, yes, but he's actually finally healthy. He's been sick since January with various daycare ailments.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well, that happens too, building up the immune system, as they say.
Yep,
So
yep.
Well, I'm glad the little guy's doing well. Yeah, get back into that music. As you can see, we're talking to each other. I've got a guitar hanging on the wall here, and I need to pick it up more often. Used to play a lot. Used to teach guitar to little kids when I was in high school to make money in the summertime. But I've had a large number of guests on the show in the automotive field that are musicians, and it's kind of interesting. Some that were professional musicians in the back, and of course, probably one of the more famous ones is John Oates of Hall & Oates, who was a guest on the show, which was pretty cool. I didn't know he was a car guy until I met him at a Rennsport event, and he's quite the car guy, so very cool. Well, let me give you a proper introduction here. Brad Novack is the Brake. The Brake in the Brake Fix podcast. He produces and hosts with his business partner, Eric, who's a past guest here on Cars Yeah. Every week, Brad and Eric interview motorsports and automotive enthusiasts. I'm very proud that I'm going to be a guest on their show next month. That's pretty cool. Sharing their stories and their enthusiasm. His career the past 22 years was in finance, working in credit unions and financial institutions. But he's a lifelong automotive enthusiast who has been a drag racer, a road racer, HPDE driving instructor, autocross, off-roader, and he rides motorcycles too. Just about everything. It's pretty safe to say that if it rolls on rubber, Brad loves it. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors. They keep the fuel in the tank here. Give them a little love, please, and we'll be right back. Covercraft's newest 3-layer all-climate cover is especially engineered for moderate weather conditions, and it's treated with an extra UV-resistant formula. It's soft, it's breathable, and it's easy to store, all while pampering your paint, providing maximum UV, rain, and dust protection. If you live where it's windy, no worries. Simply add their Gust Guards for windy conditions to add extra protection to keep your cover in place. Your 3-layer all-climate cover is custom-tailored with Covercraft's attention to detail, form and fit with the quality and attention to detail that's been their tradition since 1965. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and watercraft too. Every one of my vehicles is protected with a Covercraft cover. And I have a deal for you. Use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com, and you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order plus free shipping. That's right. So get 10% off with free shipping by simply using the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. When it was time to renew my collector car policy, my carrier raised my rates by a lot. But why? My usage was the same, my car's value was the same, and I had never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. The only change was their rate, and they had no reason why. What's with that? I researched my options, I spoke to others, and with American Collectors Insurance, what a difference. A live person actually answers the phone. She spent time learning about me and provided a reasonable quote. American Collectors Insurance now protects my special ride. I'm saving hundreds of dollars and I can sleep at night knowing my baby is properly insured. Why wait until your next premium is due? Give them a call today for your personal agreed value quote. Call 866-AC1-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of mine, Mark Green at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance, classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors, automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. So, Brad, we are back. So I'm going to dive a little deeper into the corner. You had this background in finance, but your passion was with cars, and it sounds like you finally decided to kind of make a bit more of a move. And I want to talk a little bit about all the different automotive things you've been doing, and then we're going to dive into the Break Fix podcast, why you started it, what it's all about, because I know a little bit about the podcasting world here after I've been doing this for a while. But cars, bikes, everything that rolls, what gives?
I don't know where it started. I mean, I have an idea, but when I was a little kid, my brother and I would play with our Matchbox cars and our Hot Wheels, but it didn't come from my father. I mean, he's not very much a car guy. He was in his teens. He built and destroyed an AMC. I can't remember what it was, but he had an AMC that he took to a buddy, because we all have a friend that we take our cars to hop up. But since he got rid of that car, he's been more into like trucks and boats and fishing and things like that. So I didn't get the car bug from him. My only guess is that I got it from my mother, who, when I was born, she had a late 70s V6 Camaro that I remember a little bit. I don't remember going for very many rides in it because I was just a baby. But if I had to guess where in my family I got the car bug from, it would be my mom. But other than that, nobody else in my family is really into cars. So I don't know how I gravitated towards them, but it just kind of happened from the Hot Wheels and Matchbox car days when I was a wee little tot. I remember my brother and I used to debate, because I was like 7 and he was, 3 years younger than me. He was 4. So if you can imagine what an elementary school debate sounds like, the Lamborghini was always the fastest, followed by the Ferrari, and then the Porsche, and that was the end of the debate. That was it, and all 3 of them were red. So,
well, of course they have to be. Well, you've gotten into a lot of seriousness with a lot of things. I mentioned in your intro a lot of driving stuff, racing stuff, instructing other drivers, autocross, off-roading, motorcycles. When you started getting into this, how did you start, and where did you start driving, and what were you driving?
So my first car was a Honda Civic, a 91 Civic that I inherited from my father. But I always used to tear up the highways with this 90 horsepower, 4-speed Civic. And from there, I mean, obviously I didn't do any racing or anything with that. That was just, my being dumb in high school car. But from there, I upgraded to a 2001 GTI, which was the first car that I bought for myself just out of high school. And I remember Eric was, my co-host Eric, that he's already been on your show. He was in autocross, and I mean, you've got his car background, and his whole family was in the cars. And from birth, he came out with an Audi badge on him, or a Volkswagen badge. I can't remember which one it was.
He had a stamp somewhere on his rear end.
Yeah, his birthmark is a Volkswagen badge somewhere.
Funny.
I won't say where. But so I rekindled like a friendship that I had with him, because we met in high school. Your freshman year, Spanish class, and everything. And I remember he autocrossed. He was like, "Yeah, you should bring that car out and we should go autocrossing." So, 2001, 2002, I kind of did, autocrossing with him. And his father ran if I'm remembering correctly, he ran the Potomac region of the Porsche Club here in Maryland, or where I used to live in Maryland. And they would hold autocrosses at Tipton Airfield near Fort Meade. So we did that for an entire summer. Unfortunately, then 9/11 happened and they shut down the access to the airfield, and autocrosses, especially with PCA, kind of moved around a little bit. So I got out of autocross a little bit and started getting more into the drag racing. Some of the friends that I had made in college were more into drag racing. They had Camaros and Mustangs, and there was an errant Chevy Cavalier running around with us too. But I always had this feud between my 4-cylinder turbo GTI and this other guy with a V6 Camaro. And we were going at each other all the time. I ended up getting the better of him, on the drag strip, and then he got mad, put a supercharger on his car and everything like that.
I'll get you.
Exactly. But that led me to the drag racing. And then at one point, because they all had Camaros, I kind of every once in a while I get the bug to keep up with the Joneses. So I got rid of the GTI and bought a Z28, which I drag race as well. Once I got the Z28, the V6 Camaro argument between me and him was pretty much killed. So that is where I guess I started the drag racing. And then I started following my friends and kind of started flipping cars. I had the Camaro for a couple years. Unfortunately, that car I had to retire because I ran it into a horse trailer.
Uh-oh.
Not on purpose, obviously, but I was driving on some back roads, and then it wasn't a dart. It was during the day on a Sunday, but there was a blind corner, and I was coming up over this hill, and this truck was making a left turn, hauling a horse trailer. He turned right in front of me. Thankfully, there were no animals in the trailer.
Okay,
it probably would have been a much worse accident if there were, but the car was totaled. I knocked the trailer completely off the truck. If anybody knows me on socials, my handle everywhere is Mr. Ed Killed My Z.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty much where that came from. But from there, I dabbled with Mustangs. I got back into a GTI. I got out of a GTI. I've had STIs. I've had trucks. I've got a Tundra now. I've had Suburbans. A couple of different Camaros. I mean, I've been all over the place. I've run the gamut. When it comes to vehicles, I've had a couple Jeeps, which led me into the off-roading for a little bit. I don't know. I just love cars, and they just give me a feeling of freedom, and I can escape. It's just nothing better than hopping into a car, going on a nice drive, or a vehicle, a Jeep or something on the trail, and just putting on some good music and just hanging out with your friends. They kind of bring people together.
You're a bit addicted, my friend.
I am, unfortunately. My wallet hates me for it.
Oh, no, it loves it. Wallets are designed to be opened and emptied. That's what they're all about. Filled,
exactly.
Emptied, filled, emptied.
You can't take it with you, right? So you might as well just spend it all.
Well,
and then,
yeah, I guess.
And then on top of all that, I sprinkled in a couple motorcycles just because I thought I wanted to be a motorcycle rider. So I had my first bike was a 99 Ducati 748 that I loved. I bought it used from a guy. Sometimes things just align. I had in my head, I want this motorcycle. I want a Ducati. And then a friend of a friend said, oh, I know someone who's selling one. And it just happened. And then my next bike was a Hayabusa. And then I almost killed myself on that. So I scared myself to the point where I wanted
to. I think so.
Yeah, it was... One night on a dark highway, I was doing about 160, 170.
Oh.
And I could barely see what was going on in front of me. The trees looked like just a blur. The highway itself, the lines on the road were a blur. So once I survived that ride, I parked it, and I listed it for sale, and I got rid of it like a week later.
Smart.
Because this is just not for me. I did get back into a bike. I got a Yamaha Raider for a year or so, but at that point I love the idea of owning a motorcycle. I don't actually like riding them that much.
Yeah, they can
There's just so much to go.
Yeah, a lot can go wrong, especially today with all these people that are watching their phones so much. And 748 Ducati, sometime when we have a longer time together, asked me about a guy that worked with me, and he rode his 748 through the plate glass window into my office.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. Well, let's talk about Break Fix. Now I know why you're the break in Break Fix. I get it now. It all comes clear. The Break Fix podcast, having been a podcaster for as long as I have, I've learned a lot. And when I started, I'd tell people I was a podcaster and they say, "A what?" They had no idea what it was. Most of the guests that were on my show had never even listened to one. Some still haven't, which is amazing to me because there's so many out there. But you and your buddy Eric started this Break Fix podcast. Why'd you start it? What's it all about?
It started, we've talked about it for a while, and it's just, I don't know. We wrote a whole bunch of articles that we put on our website. It didn't seem like, some of them they'd hit or miss. But a lot of people don't like to read, for some reason, because in this new day and age, with people, the way they consume media, it's got to be really quick and it's got to hit really fast. And the reading of the articles, it just didn't seem to be doing it. But we still had a bunch of stories that we wanted to tell. We still had ideas and things. So we thought, maybe we just turn it into, something. I thought either like a podcast or even like a YouTube channel, a video. But like doing video production is even more,
more
time intensive and complicated than even podcasts. production, which, Eric knows all that, but that's complicated in and of itself. But we were going to the track. We had all these stories that you gathered from all these people that we were hanging out with, and we wanted to tell those stories, but we never really got the bug to do it until COVID happened, and we weren't going to the track anymore. Suddenly everybody's schedule freed up, and we just started doing a couple Zoom happy hours to keep everybody engaged, and people were still talking, telling stories about the good old days, back in 2019, so far away, when they could go to the track still. And then we just started recording things, and we thought, we could turn this into a show. So we ultimately did. I think it was June of either 2020. Yeah, June of 2020, June or July. Eric and I just sat down and, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just put on our microphones. Let's just start talking and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And then that's where our origin story kind of came from on our very first episode. We had a lot of criticism from, people in our families, a lot of opinions and advice on how to change it. So we kind of re-recorded the pilot episode and made it more, podcast friendly with the advice that we received, more, I guess, listener friendly. Mm-hmm. And then we've just moved on from there. The show has evolved a little bit. It's changed more from kind of silly stories and, and joking around and what ifs and what should I buy. We still have some of those episodes, but now it's more about telling the stories of other people. It's not just telling our stories. It's other people in the industry, that may not have an opportunity or a platform to get their story heard. So now we're here. We've developed this fan base. We've developed this platform, and now we want to help others get their story out there.
Yeah. Well, that's the way to do it. That was my whole why story, is sharing other people's inspiring stories. Because you found out real quick, and many people do, you only have so many of your own stories to tell, and then you start retelling the same stories, and the fishes get bigger, and then the stories lose credibility, and all of that kind of stuff. Have you had what I call a driving inspiration in your life, some type of mentor or influencer?
I have a couple. I would definitely list Eric as one, because, as he mentioned on his interview, his work ethic and everything he got from his father and his family, his work ethic and his ability to just get stuff done inspires me. I swear he never sleeps. I think he closes his eyes from like 12 to 6, but he's not actually sleeping. I think his mind is still working and churning out the next great idea. And then my wife, for one, she inspires me because she's a much different person than I am. I used to be a very pessimistic and cynical person. She's very much more an optimist and just a happy-go-lucky, person. And she's kind of brought me out of my shell a little bit when it comes to my pessimism. She's always quick to stop me when I start going down that path and just, think of it this way. And she's always right. And then another is, yes, my wife is always right. I'm sure every husband that's listening to the show right now will say that.
Well, yeah, that's how you stay married for a long time.
Exactly. And then I just recently found this guy over the last couple of years, and I'll talk about him when we get to the book section of your interview. But David Goggins, he's a fascinating person, an amazing individual, and he's just kind of, he inspires me to just never give up and never think that anything is out of reach or out of grasp.
Yeah, I know who he is, so that's very cool. We'll talk about him in a little bit. We'll take a short break. We come back. I want to talk a little bit about some challenges. Love the challenge question here. Sometimes it's a little rough to go down that road, but it always ends up very positive. So keep that in mind, and we'll be right back. I've teamed up with Autogeek because, they've been the leading source of auto detailing products, accessories for more than 20 years. Their Pinnacle Sovereign Paste Wax is specially formulated from Brazilian carnauba wax. It's easy to apply on any paint surface and provides that warm glow that we love, especially me on my vehicles. You're going to love it too. A favorite of car shows countrywide, Pinnacle Sovereign Paste Wax from Autogeek wipes on easily, requires no drying time, is easy to remove, and provides up to 90 days of protection against against damaging environmental contaminants. This wax is designed to exceed the standards of the most discriminating enthusiasts and collectors. Go to Autogeek.net to get yours for the best product selection on the internet today, along with their very skilled technical support. Autogeek.net. That's where I go for all my detailing needs. That's Autogeek.net. I've discovered Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented Linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. And be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Boom! Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com. We all count on skilled auto technicians to ensure that our families and ourselves are safe on the road. That an airplane will get me safely to my destination, that trucks are moving the stock to shelves of essential parts and things that we need. That's why TechForce Foundation's slogan is so appropriate. When techs rock, America rolls. I love that. TechForce is a charity of Cars Yeah, and like all charities, they need our support. If you love cars and can relate to the young person's desire to turn their passion into a career, go to techforce.org today and donate or become a volunteer. That's techforce.org. So let's talk about this challenge, obstacle failure, something that kind of stopped you in your tracks perhaps. But more importantly, what was that lesson learned? If you take your wife's way of looking at things, even if something seems bad, there's some lesson there, maybe another door opening. I like her spirit. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about that. Is there something in your life that you learned a really valuable, positive lesson from, even though the experience wasn't so great?
One thing I've definitely learned over my career and in life is that the grass is not always greener. When my wife and I got married, we bought a house that was a significant distance from where I was working at the time. And I had to make a decision. Either I was going to do a 60-plus mile one-way commute or I was going to find a new job. And I put some feelers out, found a new job. It was actually with somebody that I had known before, that I thought I had a good relationship with. Well, it turns out that was not a good situation for me. Mm-hmm. It was a terrible 6 months of my life and my professional career. And I basically spent the whole time trying to get out of it. And then ultimately I ended up just leaving. I just left the company. Thankfully, my wife was able to, financially support us. And I was able to find a part-time job just to get me by until I could find something else. And then the next job after that, I had a string of a couple not so great, jobs in the finance world that really made me rethink whether I even wanted to be in finance anymore, period. I started looking for other career paths. I didn't have the knowledge or the experience to jump into something like IT, which all my friends are doing. At one point, I thought about going back to school and becoming a nurse, because that's something that's what my mom was. I knew many people that were nurses. Back in elementary school, they had those, silly little vocational tests.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Mine told me in 5th grade that I should be a nurse.
Really?
So I was like, yeah, very interesting, very weird. But so I looked into that. While I was doing that, I was still looking for another job. I found a job that I actually love now. I'm back in an industry that I care about, the credit union world, the finance world. And so basically the moral of this story or the failure was that I left a job for something that I thought was going to be ideal. It doesn't always turn out that way. The grass is not always greener, but don't stop looking. I learned that, just keep going. You're going to fail, but it's just a minor blip in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. The other obvious lesson, and you're in finance, this, is always have a bit of a landing pad set up, a savings account, something on the side.
Yep.
We hear it all the time. Unfortunately, they don't teach finance in schools unless you get into the college level stuff. I wish they did, even back to elementary school, just simple lessons on compound interest and why it's important to have some money set aside, not always spend every, allowance you get, although I never got an allowance.
I mean, they could teach an entire course on what your credit score is and why your credit score, how it moves, why it's important, why you need a good credit score. I mean, that's a entire semester worth of education right there.
Yeah, but of course they don't. I think the school system is designed just to create robots out of all of us, so we'll be really good workers for somebody else. Which no, thank you.
Yeah. I think the school system is designed to pat itself on the back, and it's all these standardized tests. But that's another topic for another podcast.
Yeah, we could spend hours on that discussion for sure. So, looking ahead with the Break Fix podcast, I like to ask about bucket list items. Where do you see this going? Have you guys thought past the next year, 2, 3, or are you just still ramping this thing up and trying to feel your way through and adjust and move, just like being on a track in a new car?
We have thought about it. I believe we do have kind of a rough draft of a strategic plan of what we want to do, but we want to grow the podcast into more than a podcast. We want to be able to tell people stories, obviously sticking with the podcast platform, but we want to grow into, as I touched on earlier, video. If there's a way we can figure out how to do the video production, we want to do on-site. We've actually already started doing this on-site recordings and interviews at live races with some of the drivers and things like that. Find other methods to reach people and get the stories out that may be greater than the podcast. We'd love to get hooked on partnerships with we do the crossover episodes with you and with other podcasters to widen our reach, and we just want to continue widening our reach even outside of the podcast world.
Yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of different ways to go with this platform than people think. So, and things are changing so much. I had a talk with Wayne Carini from Chasing Classic Cars yesterday. He's going to be a returning guest. He was a very early guest on my show, number 36, and he's going to be on the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's going to be on the show next week. And so we were talking about cable and what's happening. His TV show ran. He goes, I never dreamed my show would run as long as I did. I thought after the first year it'd be over. Who would want to watch me? And I think it ran 16 plus years, still on the air. But he said something very profound because he's about to do some new things with his career. And he goes, I guarantee you in the next 4 or 5 years, there will be no cable TV. It'll be gone. It's just, it's so outdated, not working. Roku platforms and other streaming platforms are the way to go. And I think you're much younger than me, but I'm trying to be young in my knowledge of IT, is that there's so many other ways now. And I think of how little I watch TV because there's some great YouTube channels I like to do that are content created by amateurs that do a fun job and it's enjoyable, and there's a whole world out there. So there's a lot more to do. It's pretty cool. So special vehicle story for you. I mean, for a guy who's had so many things that roll on rubber, holy cow, if you could pick one and share a story, that would be cool, other than running into horse trailers.
So I've already told that one. I actually had 3.
Okay.
We've already talked about the 99 Camaro. That I missed that car. I had the 99 Ducati 748. That was my first motorcycle. My first, what I thought was a cool vehicle. Nobody I knew had a Ducati. It sounded amazing. Those motorcycles just sound phenomenal. I regret selling that, but I always try to. In my younger days, I tried to keep up with the Joneses and tried to get something else, or I always wanted something else. But again, the grass is green. Grass is always greener, even though it's not. So I sold it for, I don't even remember what I bought, but. And then I had a 98 Jeep Wrangler TJ that was lifted on 32-inch tires, open axles. I mean, I didn't put a lot of money into it, but that was just a lot of fun, driving around, taking the doors off, the top off. I beat the crap out of that thing, and it just kept taking it. It just loved it. Those are the 3 vehicles out of probably the 30 or 25 or 30 that I've had that I miss the most, I would say. And then a runner-up or honorable mention would be my first track car, which is a 2003 GTI. We dubbed Eddie because my racing number is 666, and Eddie from Iron Maiden and Number of the Beast and all that. That was my first track car. I miss that car too. But when my son was born, I decided that I needed something less track oriented and more something I could drive on the street and have some fun, because my time is limited in being able to get to the racetrack, and having a track only vehicle just wasn't going to work for me. So I had to sell Eddie. Then I bought a Mark V R32, which is kind of what I have now with my Tundra.
Well, welcome to parenthood. Changes all perspectives for sure. Yeah, I was riding a 750 Ducati Monster and a MV Agusta F4 and had little kids. And every time I talked my wife into jumping on the back of my Ducati because you could take the seat off and there was an extra space for her in the back one time. And I was very careful. We went for a ride, didn't do anything silly. And we came back and she got off and I said, "What do you think?" She said, "All I could think about is our kids being orphans the entire time I was on this thing." And so, it kind of puts your perspective in a different place. And as we said, bikes are dangerous, but they sure are fun. Maybe off-road stuff. I've got lots of friends who have families of little kids are riding off-road little motorcycles. It's a lot safer, and maybe that's in your future. I have a feeling it might be. So I'm going to be your car psychologist here. This is an interesting place to go. We do this here on Cars Yeah, is into your mind. If you were reincarnated, pun intended, manifest as a vehicle, not what you want to be though. This is how you perceive yourself. You got to dig a little deep for me here. Might have to get the tissues out and do a little analysis. What would you be and why?
I thought about this question a lot over the last couple of days, preparing for this interview. And I ultimately came up with two options. They're both kind of about the same, but the one I'm going to go with is the Mercedes-Benz Cl600.
Okay.
The big V12, huge horsepower. One of the ones from like the early 2000s. They're quiet, they're unassuming. They just look like any other, Mercedes coming down the road. But if you pick a street fight with one, you're going to get annihilated. And I kind of feel that's kind of me. I'm a big guy, it's a big car. I'm kind of quiet and, unassuming. I don't stand out, with the exception of my size. I don't stand out with my voice or my persona or anything. But if I was somebody else, I wouldn't want to mess with me.
That's a pretty good way to say it. Yeah. Well, was it walk quietly, carry a big stick? I mean, that's what that CL600 does. And, there's all sorts of cars like that do that. I kind of think about, I have an E46 M3. That car is kind of that way. People just saying, "Oh, it's another BMW," but you hit the sport button and you go and the thing takes off. And there's other cars in the world that are like that as well. Even think about the wonderful Mercedes Black Series cars.
Yes.
If you don't know what those are, but holy mackerel, don't pick a street fight with a Black Series.
One of my all-time favorite cars is a CLK Black Series. If I could scrounge up the money and convince the wife that I need one of those cars, it would be in my garage right now.
Yeah, well, there's a thing about need and want. And my
Exactly.
listeners, my listeners know this. My mom taught me this. I used to say, Mom, I need a new bike. She goes, "No, you want a new bike. You already have a bike." And I go, "Yeah, but I want what I need and I need what I want." And she'd look at me and go to your room, smart kid. So there you go. How about a great book? Love to share books that people have enjoyed here on Cars Yeah.
All right, so books. Yeah, great books. I have two books in a series of books that I'm going to say. One is Performance Thinking by Dr. Jacques Dallaire. If you listen to the Break Fix podcast, we actually interviewed him at one of the SRO races not too long ago. But it's all about getting out of your own head, and being able to operate at your highest peak performance all the time, not just in practice, but in the big game, if we use the sports analogies, or the big race, or that big speech that you've got coming up in the boardroom. It helps you get out of your own mind and stop thinking about the doubts and start thinking about all the good things that are going on.
Yeah, he's great. He's been a guest here too, and I love that book. He's helped a lot of drivers get over mental moves. You think about even great athletes like Tiger Woods, who went through a really bad period of mindset, failures, and then came back strong. And Jacques is great. Great book.
Yeah, and he's got another one that's also geared towards helping your children reach their full potential as well. I have both of them, obviously, because I've got a son, and I want to make sure that I help him grow and support him in the best ways that I can in whatever he wants to do. The next book is, obviously, we talked about David Goggins. His book, Can't Hurt Me. That book is, you got to callous the mind. It's an amazing book. His journey is just fascinating. All the things that he's accomplished, in his life, and from the childhood that he had that was not the greatest of childhoods, to be able to be who he is and become, what he's become. It's a fascinating book. It's very eye-opening, and it's just, he's a wonderful person. I love that guy. I would love to actually interview or talk to him, just sit down and have a beer with him and just pick his brain. The next one is not inspirational. It's more just, because I like to read. And I'm very big into like fantasy books, like Tolkien and George R.R. Martin and stuff. This is the series is called the Stormlight Archive, and it's part of the bigger overarching Cosmere series by Brandon Sanderson. The first book of the series is called The Way of Kings. Fantastic read, very, very fantasy oriented. I love those books. So.
Yeah, you can escape in those kind of books. Very cool.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to have some fun today because I'm going to be your benefactor. I'm going to open the checkbook and I'm going to park anything you want in the driveway so you can go for what I call the ultimate drive. And you can take it anywhere in the world. Or if you want to be like Elon Musk, we'll launch you out into space, playing Rocket Man forevermore. Wonder where that car is now that he sent out there. And I'd love to thought that someday an alien will fly up next to it and look over and go, what on earth is that? I'm sure he's thinking that way too. And you can take anybody with you, even somebody who is not with us anymore, someone who's deceased, which opens up the world of opportunities. So what's the ultimate drive look like for you today, Brad?
Well, this one's going to be a little bit of a tearjerker.
Oh, okay.
So the person is going to be my mother. She passed away from complications from lupus. She had lupus. She dealt with that for several years.
It's tough.
A lot of people don't know. Yeah, a lot of people don't know what lupus is, but it's an autoimmune disease. It's very
terrible.
It is. It's a terrible thing.
My mother-in-law had that. It's terrible.
Yeah, go look up the Lupus Foundation for more information, and please donate if you can. Sorry, I didn't mean to plug there, but so she would be the person that I would drive with. She was my closest thing in my family to a car enthusiast. So the car would be a Ferrari 250 GT California long wheelbase.
Ooh.
I say long wheelbase because I'm a big guy, and it's probably I can fit in the long wheelbase more than the short wheelbase. And then we would drive up and down Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Well, nice choice of car and nice choice to drive. And of course, taking your mom. And again, my condolences for that loss. That disease is just horrible. And, I mean, there's so many terrible diseases, but a lot of people, when you mention that, they don't have any idea. So, my wish is that gets eradicated from the world so people don't have to do that. But that Pacific Coast Highway drive, I've done that many times. It's a lot of fun, beautiful. The key there is to take your time and enjoy. And if you do a little series, turn around and go back and drive it down and going the other way, and then turn around and drive back going the other way. Did that a couple times with my son for sure. You've taken us on a fun ride today, Brad. This has been great. Your cohort in your endeavors at Break Fix Podcast, Eric, he did a great job too. So for you listeners that missed my talk with him, you'll find that on the Cars Yeah podcast or any mobile podcast app. Before I let you go, could you share a success quote or mantra, maybe some type of words of inspiration for our listeners?
I have a couple. One is it's actually a quote from one of Quentin Tarantino's films, Four Rooms. It's the less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. So basically just keep your mouth shut. And then what's behind you doesn't matter. Obviously the famous Enzo Ferrari quote. Things that happen in the past, they shape you and they make you who you are, but they don't matter when it comes to what's coming in the future. Just look forward and keep plowing ahead. And then the thing that I thought of is actually one of Eric's favorite quotes. It's we're looking for the thing that gets us to the next thing. You asked us what we were looking to do with the podcast, where we want to go. We want to go to YouTube or whatever, comes after the podcast, to grow the channel, and grow our footprint and our platform. That's going to get us to, the next thing after that. We're always looking ahead, trying to see what the next great platform is, how we can get these stories told, and then how we can maximize our reach, to make these stories told and heard.
A couple of these they're great metaphors for racing, because as you know, when you race, you're always looking way ahead, not in front of you. And it doesn't matter much who's behind you, really. You're just always looking way down the road. I have a great quote that ties into what's behind you doesn't matter from Ayrton Senna. The past is just data. I only see the future. And I put that on my business card when I started this podcast so that instead of dwelling on what I used to do, focus on what's way ahead of me and how am I going to get there. and so forth. So great inspiration there. How can people learn more about you and the Break Fix podcast?
They can catch Breakfast on all, as Eric likes to say, the podcatchers.
I like that term. I never heard that term before. I might have to steal that.
yeah. By all means, go for it. We're on, Spotify, Apple, wherever you can find wherever you get your podcast fix. You can reach us on our website, www.gtmotorsports.org. You can catch us on, social media. We're on, Instagram, Facebook, GT Motorsports. Just look for us anywhere.
I'll put links to all these on Brad's show notes page. Check out the Break Fix podcast, and you follow me on social media, listeners. As soon as my show pops up on theirs, I'll make sure I post that so you can listen to me with the mic flipped a little bit. That's always a little awkward for me, is to have the mic flipped and have to answer questions. But it's a fun thing, and I had a great time with you guys recording that show. You did a marvelous job, so I'm really looking forward to the finished product. Brad, thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise. Have fun with that new little boy. What a great new adventure you have coming in your life. You have no idea what's ahead of you, but it's pretty darn great being a father of two wonderful children and now a grandfather, which is even cooler. You can spoil them and send them home, so that's kind of neat. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you down the road.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.